One of the greatest ironies of democracy is having democratically elected dictator. Nothing beats the fact that a leader is so unpopular and yet gets elected, re-elected over and over again, even when it is obvious that this leader has little to deliver again. His time is gone. He deserves some rest. He deserves some peace. I'm not saying he should rest in peace, no. But I'm saying the burdens that come with leading a poor nation for 39 years is overwhelming, except if it is not. So how do you unseat a democratically elected dictator? I might have to be corrected here because I don't know if it is an actual democracy that brings in a dictator. Yet, how do you remove a dictator, an elected one? Elections? Probably not. Because Uganda has tried that more than 6 times without success. And they are heading to the 7th time in January. The worst part is that there is no guarantee they will succeed. Now, is Uganda's fate sealed? To answer this question, let's examine the story of one of the most suppressed movements in Africa, the People Power Movement, led by Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, popularly known as Bobi Wine, a musician turned politician. This political movement is quickly altering the landscape of Ugandan politics. It has become a massive threat to Museveni, and sadly, it has led to the death of many whose only cry is for a true democracy. Some people died who didn't even care about democracy. Their only crime was to wake up that day and chase survival. Is there any other tragedy that beats this? Welcome to another episode of your favorite African history channel. Please kindly share, subscribe and give this video a like. It helps us in our work. Bobi Wine was born on 12 February 1982. At the time of his birth, his mother was working at the Nkozi hospital as a midwife. He was born in that hospital. Little is known about Bobi Wine and his childhood, but we know that his father had 40 children. In a country like Uganda, unless you're a relative of Museveni, you most likely do not have the resources to care for 40 children. Let me give you a perspective. The population of Uganda is about 34 million. 14 million people live below the poverty line. 14 million people on less than $1.9 a day. In fact, when Bobi was born, the condition was far worse. You see, Uganda has a turbulent history. Dictator after dictator, the country has never experienced true democracy. It has never experienced a peaceful transition of power. Power has always controlled the people. From the oppressive regimes of Milton Obote to the savage leadership of Idi Amin Dada and then to the eternal brutality of Museveni. It is as if Uganda is under a spell of dictators. While their leaders keep stalking wealth, more people drift into poverty almost on a daily basis. The unlucky Bobi was born at the time Idi Amin just finished his dance, and Obote was in his second phase of tyranny. There he was, among many children, in a poverty-stricken world, right in the slums of Kampala. That is where he grew up with his mother, who was the breadwinner of the family. As a nurse, she made a decent income, a little over the income of the average Ugandan. She used her money to buy land in Kamwokya, a slum in Kampala. She built a house for her family there. Today, Bobi Wine lives there, and his world-famous studio is on that land. He attended Kitante High School, where he obtained his Uganda Certificate of Education, and then proceeded to the Kololo Senior Secondary School, where he obtained his Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education. He then proceeded to get a degree in social science at the Makerere University in Uganda. But after one semester, he switched courses to study music, art, and drama. At the University of Makerere, Bobi Wine met a girl, but there was one obstacle. He came from 2 different worlds. This girl had her parents who paid her school fees and took care of her. But for him, it was a different story. Coming from the ghetto means he has little or no support. He pays his own school fees and accommodation and he feeds himself. In Bobi's world, there were no rules. But with this girl, it was different. Her life was ordered and she had high moral standard. This is a weird world for Bobi. A world with so many rules, a world with principles, vision and ambition. It was a crazy world. But meeting this girl was a turning point for Bobi Wine's life. For a man whose only desire was to own a house, maybe a car, and be able to afford 3 square meals, Bobi soon became ambitious. Barbara Itungu gave Bobi Wine what he never knew existed. She gave him a sense of purpose. While at Makerere University, Bobi Wine began his music career singing about affluent lifestyle, cars, girls, expensive clothes, and wristwatches. All those things that resonated with the youth. If that is all he did, we probably wouldn't know him today as the political activist that is shaking up Uganda's power structure. The man who makes Museveni have sleepless nights. So what happened? One night in 2006, Bobi Wine, the celebrity musician, was at a party. He had arrived with his fine car and entourage. However, he got into an altercation with the big man at the party. The big man slapped him and ordered his boys to deal with him. He was bullied. He tried to file an official case against the man, but the police would not help him as the man was a big man. As he drove home that night, he began to think about his country's justice system more and more. You need to understand what was happening here. Bobi Wine was no longer just an average citizen at this point. He was a popular musician that was known in many places. He thought his popularity would shield him. He was wrong. And that day, he realized that no one really was safe with such a justice system. On that night, he made a decision to do something about this. What could he do? He could sing. So he decided to integrate his fight for justice into his music. In his own words, he said, "Since then, I decided to change my music from entertainment to edutainment. I started speaking for the ghetto people. There should be a bigger meaning to my music, not only financial benefits to me, but also transformational benefits to the ghetto back home where I come from." Bobi Wine decided that his art should do more than entertain. He should speak for the voiceless. He started including more humanitarian and politically motivated tones in his music. He sang not only to entertain, but also to educate the people of Uganda. His music started targeting politicians, calling them out to take more responsibility in their communities. Around the same time he was making these changes, something interesting was happening in Uganda that was supposed to present the giant strides of Yoweri Museveni, but instead, it furthered the newly launched political music career of Bobi Wine. What was happening? Commonwealth Heads of State Government meeting was scheduled to happen in Kampala from November 23rd to 25th, 2007. President Museveni's government launched massive beautification campaigns that devastated the lives of ordinary Ugandans. The government swept vendors, beggars, and street children off Kampala Street to create a sanitized image for visiting world leaders, including Queen Elizabeth II. Schools were demolished, informal settlements cleared, and thousands of people lost their livelihoods, all to impress foreign dignitaries who would spend just 3 days in Uganda. This brutal displacement of his own people, the ghetto dwellers he had grown up with in Kamwokya slum, moved Bobi Wine to write a song, Ghetto, featuring Nubian Lee in late 2005, releasing it as preparations intensified. The song was a bold departure from the party anthems, directly questioning why Ugandans had to suffer so much in the name of pleasing a visiting leader. In Ghetto, he sang, "They sweep us from the streets like garbage, but we are the same people who vote for you. You beautify for visitors, but leave us in squalor." Lyrics that resonated powerfully with millions of displaced urban poor. This transformation earned him the nickname Ghetto President by 2007, a title that perfectly captured his role as the voice of Uganda's forgotten masses. Unlike other musicians who sang for entertainment or government patronage, Bobi Wine became the unofficial spokesman for the urban poor, the unemployed youth, and everyone marginalized by Museveni's increasing authoritarian rule. The name Ghetto President wasn't just a catchy name. It established his political identity a full decade before he entered formal politics in 2017. It positioned him as a leader of an alternative Uganda, one that prioritized the needs of ordinary people over the comforts of political elites and foreign visitors. He should have stayed in his lane. He should have enjoyed the flamboyance and comfort that comes with music and fame. But like his grandfather, Bobi Wine decided he was going to pursue a cause greater than the one he had already had. He wanted to improve the lives of ordinary Ugandans. So he decided to pursue a career in politics. His grandfather, Yosefu Walakira, was among the rebels who fought in the war that brought Museveni to power. Although he was in a different rebel group, reports have it that he sometimes accommodated Museveni in his home before he was killed when his house was bombed. He and 3 other members of his family died from injuries sustained in that bombing. Bobi Wine is undoubtedly loved in Uganda. His music resonates with all, especially the youth. Uganda has the second youngest population in the world. 77% of its population is below the age of 25. And these people are crazy about Bobi Wine. So his decision to join politics gave them a sense of hope. Their ghetto president may after all be the president of Uganda. Unfortunately, with this hope comes a level of misery. No dictator willingly leaves power. It comes at a cost. And what is the cost of this hope? To Ugandans and to Bobi Wine himself. Will he be able to stand the tyranny of Museveni, or like his grandfather, fall into the struggle? Because many have tried and were unsuccessful. And Bobi Wine has just ignited an expensive hope, because this hope nearly cost Museveni his throne, and the people of Uganda paid a massive price for it. To understand what happened afterwards, you need to know the man Museveni himself. We have a video of Museveni which you can watch here. This is a brief summary. President Museveni is not a regular dictator. He's very subtle. For a time, he was the darling of Ugandan people. He was an icon of development to the West. It's no surprise because most dictators wear the face of savior at first. The thing is, for Museveni, he didn't just wear it. He was really a passionate revolutionary. But what happened? In the words of Bobi Wine himself, why did such a prized revolutionary decide to become one of the world's most despised dictators? The answer is simple. Like in the famous quote of Lord Acton, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Museveni tasted power. Although he was an advocate against staying in power for a long time, once he had tasted it, he refused to let go. For nearly 40 years, he has crushed all opposition, consolidated power, and devised means to remain in office in a pseudo-democracy system of government. Museveni's woes began when Bobi Wine decided to run for a parliamentary position in the 2017 by-elections for the Kyandondo County East constituency. Despite his popularity, Bobi employed an aggressive door-to-door campaign strategy. He won the election by a wide margin. After his victory, he also used the same campaign strategies for other parliamentarians in the 2018 by-elections. Most of the candidates he campaigned for won the election. This gained him increased fame as a favorite politician. This also drew Museveni's attention to him. What he has just pulled out is very uncommon in politics in Uganda. He had defeated the candidates of the incumbent political party and those of the main opposition as well. But he didn't stop there. While in parliament, he vehemently campaigned against the removal of age limits from Uganda's constitution. President Museveni had earlier amended the constitution to remove term limits. However, he now wants to remove age limit. He's simply seeking a means to rule Uganda for life. But that is the same reason Bobi came to parliament, to stop Museveni from contesting again. By the end of 2018, the constitution had to be amended. Museveni will run again for president. As a member of Ugandan opposition and a member of the opposition party, Bobi Wine was a strong critic of Museveni. He condemned the human rights abuses, the suppression of free speech, and the use of police force and the armed forces as though they were the president's personal property. With this, he earned the enmity of President Museveni. In 2018, during the Arua by-elections, a very tragic event happened. Museveni and Bobi Wine clashed in Arua during the by-election for the vacant seat in parliament for the Arua constituency. Supporters of the opposition candidate, Kisiano Wadri, allegedly threw stones at the convoy of President Museveni. This led to a clash between the security forces and President Museveni. Bobi Wine was there to support Wadri, while Museveni was there to support the candidate of the National Resistance Movement, his political party. Police fired rounds of bullets at Bobi's car, hoping they would kill him. However, the bullets hit his driver instead of Bobi Wine. Bobi took to social media and revealed that the police had killed his driver and had surrounded the hotel where he was staying. The next day, Bobi was arrested for unlawful possession of firearms and incitement of violence. To solidify his tyranny, President Museveni had parliament pass a law that allowed civilians to be charged in a military court. So when Bobi Wine was arrested, he was charged with possession of firearms. He pleaded not guilty, yet he was tortured to the extent that he was unable to walk. Back in the streets of Uganda, the youth came out in numbers to protest and demand the release of Bobi Wine. Their president, the Ghetto President, has been arrested and they want him back. Due to the mounting pressure from the protests and opposition, the Uganda state prosecution withdrew the charges against him in the military court. This was people's power. Sometimes even the subtlest dictators bow to it. However, Not long after they dropped the charges against Bobi Wine at the military court, the state prosecution charged him again with treason in a civilian court. After Bobi Wine was released, he traveled to the United States of America to receive medical treatment and attend a number of press conferences. On the day of Bobi Wine's release, the government banned his supporters from gathering, and on the day he returned from the US, none of his supporters were allowed to gather to receive him.
My brothers and sisters were arrested coming to pick me from the airport.
Bobi Wine was now a threat to President Yoweri Museveni. However, the irony is that he was just a parliament member. But by now, he has already started rallying support around the country for a united opposition. Many have seen him as the right man to challenge Museveni. They say he's the right man to remove Museveni from power. The year is 2019. Bobi Wine has just declared that he will be running for president in 2021. What President Museveni has feared the most is becoming a reality. He may be facing the most serious political challenge in his 35-year career as the president of Uganda. He shouldn't be running again, but thanks to the loyal parliament he has, the constitution was amended to accommodate his age. The 75-year-old man will be facing the most serious and perhaps the youngest opposition ever, and Bobi Wine was ready and equal to the task. In July 2020, Bobi Wine announced that he had joined the National Unity Party, and in November, he was elected the party's president and flag bearer for the upcoming 2021 elections. Shortly after his nomination, Bobi was arrested by the Uganda military. On November 6, 2020, Bobi Wine kicked off his election campaign. This was the year of the pandemic, and President Museveni had enacted a rule stating that to curb the spread of the virus, gatherings in Uganda should not exceed 200 people. The man who made the law didn't follow it, because people were seen in his rallies crowded and without face masks. But the day Bobi started his campaign, he was arrested. According to the police, he was arrested for having more than 200 people at his rally. This arrest marked the beginning of a dark chapter in the lives of some people in Uganda. It signifies the death of hope, and the youth were not ready to lose what little hope is left in the pursuit of the long tumultuous rule of Museveni. A widespread demonstration erupted across the country, calling for the release of Bobi Wine. Protesters filled the streets of many cities, including Kampala, Masaka, Jinja, Mbali, and many others. People power, our power. They chanted these words everywhere until the police descended on them. They beat the protesters with sticks, their hands, and their guns. They also fired live ammunition at the peaceful protesters. By the time the environment was calm, more than 50 people were dead according to the government's estimate. Some were just bystanders, while others were teenagers, young people with their full lives ahead of them, killed in cold blood because one man decided that he was too big to be challenged. Some human rights group estimated that the protest claimed about 100 lives. But what is most disturbing is the reaction of the government to the lives lost. The Ugandan Security Minister, General Eli Tomwine, declared on national TV that police have the right to shoot and kill unarmed civilians, saying that if the civilians reach a certain level of violence. But that level of violence is what has never been defined. Since the killing, the government promised to investigate the incident, but nothing has been said or done about it. Many people lost their lives, many their livelihood. Over 2,000 people were incarcerated. All they wanted was to have a voice. Their call was for Museveni to return power to the people. It is the people's power. Bobi Wine was eventually released. In January 2021, the Electoral Commission announced that Museveni won the re-election with 58% of the vote. Shortly after the voting, Bobi Wine was placed under house arrest for about 2 weeks and was refused visitors despite complaints that he had run out of food. He challenged the result in court but asked his lawyers to withdraw the case after seeing photos of the Chief Justice with Museveni, and he was a correspondent party to the suit. Museveni has served 6 presidential terms. He's seeking re-election for a 7th term. The 80-year-old dictator successfully built a dynasty that he hopes to pass on to his son. Bobi Wine, though unsuccessful, made Museveni feel very close to losing power. But he didn't. Will Bobi Wine win the next election? Is there hope for Uganda? And how do you remove a dictator? The campaigns for the next election in Uganda has already begun. Is this the time that Museveni will leave power? Or will it be a repeat of the 2021 elections again? The whole world is watching, and many people are hoping and believing that Uganda can take a turn for the better. Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, Please like, comment, and share with your friends. Till I see you again, bye bye.